right, so here's Regents Review number 2. I hope that my recordings help you should you have any questions. If you still have some questions, so go ahead and post it on Google Classroom underneath the assignment, and I can then go ahead and help you a little bit more. All right, so as always, don't forget to read what's above the picture. Okay, so here it says in the diagram below, DE divides AB and AC proportionally. That might not mean much to you right now, but I'm going to highlight DE, and if it divides AB and AC proportionally, that's their indirect way of telling you that DE is parallel to BC. And now if two lines are parallel, we're going to have a few things happen. For right now, we're just going to leave it at that and keep reading. Angle C is 26 degrees, which is already in the picture. Angle A is 82 degrees, which is already in the picture. And then, of course, we have this statement here, which a lot of students don't like to read, but it is important. It tells you that DF, which is right here, bisects angle BDE. So if this is angle BDE, if anything gets bisected, it means it gets cut into two equal parts. So that means that this angle and this angle are going to end up being exactly the same measure. Now, not only are those the same measure, but if you have two parallel lines and it's cut by a transversal, whatever this angle is here is the same as this angle there. So that means not only were those two angles up there the same, but this angle is going to be the same as them as well. Okay? So I'm just going to put an X in there for a second because that's going to help me see that, those two are the same because it got bisected. This one and this one are the same because of alternate interior angles. So therefore, this top angle here and this angle down here have to be the same. All right, so now let's figure out how we're going to get to those angles. We have this angle A here as well as angle 26 down here, the C. And if I outline this outside triangle and look at the bigger picture, I know two of the three angles. So I could figure out that third angle B if I just do 82 plus 26, which gives me 108. And then if I do that 180 minus the 108, okay, that will give me, so I'm running out of space here, I'm on my son's iPad mini, that gives me 72. So that means this angle in the bottom left corner here is 72. Okay, I'm going to color in that bottom left triangle. I guess I'll pick like this pink right there. Okay, this bottom left triangle right here, now I know I know one of the three, but I know that the other two have to be the same. So I know again that all the angles add to 180, which means if I do 180 minus that 72 in the pink triangle, that gives me 108. But those two angles have to be the same, so that means I also have to take that 108 and cut it in half. So that means each one of those angles has to be 54 degrees. Now the question asks for DFB. So DFB is this angle right here, and that angle is 54 degrees. So that's number one. Okay, now I'm going to go to number 2. So in this particular problem, we're talking about a parallelogram. And if you notice, none of the options down here include numbers. So it must mean that we're dealing with our properties of parallelograms, specifically the properties of diagonals. So if you remember, one of the important properties of diagonals in a parallelogram is that diagonals bisect each other. I'm going to just write that down. Again, I'm sorry that this is so sloppy. I'm using the iPad mini and an old stylus. So, okay. So that being said, let's go through all the options to figure out which statement is true. Okay, the first statement says that HN, so I'm going to highlight HN in blue, and then I'm going to highlight it here in blue, is equal to half of AD. So I'm going to highlight AD in this pink. Now, we do know that those two diagonals are not congruent to each other. They're only congruent to each other in a rectangle and in a square. You could fake it by, measuring your pencil like I showed you in class. So they are different, and there is no relationship. No one says that it has to be half. It could be, but it's definitely, in this picture, doesn't look like it's going to be. So that's not something, that's not a property that's true. Now let's look at AS. AS, I'm going to use a fancy pencil as per my son. Okay, so here's AS, this nice glitter pen there. AS is right there, and they're saying that AS is half of AD. Let's use this rainbow one to make it pretty. It's half of AD. Oh, so pretty. All right, so now common sense-wise, it does look like it's half, and we do know that diagonals bisect each other, which means they cut each other in half. But what I like to do with these types of problems is put in like fake numbers. So if from D to S was 5, that would mean that from S to A would also have to be 5. So let's put that into here and see if it's a true equation. So AS would therefore be 5 is equal to half of AD. Now in my picture, AD would be the whole thing. So AD would be the 5 plus 5, which is 10. And that is true. 5 is half of 10. So this is a true statement. Okay, you can go through the rest of them. You will see that they don't end up being correct. There are angles that are congruent to each other. For example, AHN will be congruent to DHN because they're alternate interior angles. And then this one right here will be congruent to this one right here because they're alternate interior angles, but none of those are those options. Okay, let's go to number 3. Okay, number 3, oh look, it's a directed line segment. We went over that on number 1. So for starters, you have 2 points, and then we have to split into a ratio of 3 to 2. So if it's something split into a ratio of 3 to 2, we know that it has to be 5 equal parts. Now you can get a piece of graph paper and graph it, or I'm going to go up here, we can do the arithmetic that I taught you. So A is negative 8, 7, and B is 7, negative 13. Ooh, I'm sorry, it's C actually. C is 7, negative 13. So what you're going to do is bottom minus top. So I'm going to draw my segment like I always do, and I'm going to split this segment into 5 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4 points. We'll split it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts. Okay, and as far as the arithmetic, we'll do bottom minus top. So negative 13 minus 7, and then I need to divide that by 5. So that gives me negative 20 divided by 5, which is negative 4. Oops. Can't write that negative 4. Let me try again. So it's equal to negative 4. So that means from 7, I'm going to subtract 4 and get 3. Subtract 4, get negative 1. Subtract 4, get negative 5. Subtract 4, get negative 9. Subtract 4 and get negative 13. Being that all of these all are different y values, we could actually get an answer already. We can split it into a ratio of 3 to 2. So 1 section, 2 section, 3 sections. And then 1 section, 2 sections. So where the highlighter changes color, the point that it goes to would have a negative 5 in the y value. So that would mean it would be choice 1. But I'm just going to do the math for the x value. So bottom minus top would be 7 minus the top, which is negative 8. Divide that by 5. So we get 15 divided by 5, which is a positive 3, which means we're going to add 3 every time. So negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5, plus 3 is negative 2, plus 3 is positive 1, plus 3 is 4, plus 3 more is 7. So as you can see, that point 1, negative 5 is the answer right here. Okay, so now we're going to go to number 4. Almost done. Oh, I love these questions. Okay, so over here we are rotating a figure. So now a rotation is a basic rigid motion, and basic rigid motions preserve distance and angle measure. Now that means that whatever triangle ABC is will be congruent to the size and shape of triangle RST. I like to write the letters on top of each other because now we know that A corresponds to R, B corresponds to S, and C corresponds to T. So if they're asking us for which statement must be true again, it's easier to look at this than it is the picture because the picture already has been rotated. So let's go. So first it says angle A is congruent to R. So angle A is right here. So if that's the first spot, that would be congruent to angle R, which is in the first spot. So right off the bat, I think that's the correct answer, but let's just go through the rest and see if they're right or wrong. Choice number 2 says angle A with angle S. So now angle A we knew was congruent to angle R. If we wanted something congruent to angle S, it would have had to have been angle B. So we know that one's incorrect. Okay, CB, we start at C, we go to B. That would be congruent to TS. This says TR, so it would have to be TS in order to be true. And then the fourth one from C to A would be congruent to T to R. So that would be T to R. So again, that one was wrong. So the only one correct here is angle 1. This one's too easy to get wrong, so please make sure you go carefully and slowly so that you don't make a silly mistake. All right, and then the last one, number 5. Okay, so we have a triangle. Bear with me because graphing this is not easy on this iPad. We know that A has to have a y value of 3. So it's got to end up somewhere on this dashed line. This is the street it needs to live on because this is where y is equal to 3. Okay, B is negative 3, so left 1, 2, 3, negative 1 right here. And C is negative 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. So that's C. Now A needs to be, again, somewhere on this dashed line. Now we need to make a right triangle. Right triangles have right angles. Right angles are formed by perpendicular lines. As far as the math that's concerned with perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals. So if we find the slope from B to C, that was not very straight, but that's okay. The slope of BC, which is down 1, 2, 3 to the right 2. So down 3 would be a negative 3, to the right 2 would be a positive 2. The perpendicular slope of AB would have to be positive 2 over 3. So from B, I need to move towards the dashed line. So I'm going to move according to this. Those are my driving directions. Remember, you're going to go up 1, 2, to the right 1, 2, 3. Now, you're not quite there yet. That doesn't mean this wouldn't be a right triangle. It would be a right triangle, but you're just not on the right street. You need to be on this street, which means you need to do it again. Up 1, 2, to the right 1, 2, 3. So, boom. There you are in the right spot on the right street, and therefore that point would create a right angle. I'm sorry, this is not very straight because this iPad and this stylus are not the best, but that would create a right angle right here. Now the point of that is right here, this guy right there. The coordinates of him or his address are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the point is 3, 3. Now the question, you always want to answer their question. Okay, it says state a value of x. So what you would have to do is you would have to say that x is equal to 3. Okay, it says to justify. Now we definitely have justified by giving this math as well as this verbal explanation. Okay, so there is enough over here to absolutely give you full credit. All right, if you still have any questions, you can absolutely comment, and I will do my best to respond to your comments. But again, don't stress out. Just do the best that you can, one day at a time. All right, stay safe. Be well. Bye.